3PNR with Adam R. This episode of 3PNR is featured on the UnX Network. Welcome to 3PNR. I'm your host, Adam R. And on this episode with me now is Debbie Ziegelmeyer. How you doing, Debbie?
Hi, doing great. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for being on. I appreciate your time. So tonight's real simple. We'll start out with this. What got you on the path you're on as far as with MUFON and ufology?
Wrong place, wrong time. Let's see. What got me on the path with MUFON? Actually, I had been an independent investigator already for several years before. I grew up at the foot of Mount Graham in Safford, Arizona, so I had this brilliant sky to look at. Always had a telescope. I got involved in MUFON in 2000. They had a fantastic conference symposium here in St. Louis. I went to that and I was just hooked. I was doing investigations on my own, but mostly Roswell. And that conference had Bud Hopkins, Bruce Maccabee, Stanton Friedman, and the list goes on and on and on. So, I mean, who wouldn't, who would say, this is pretty phenomenal, I need to join this group? And I immediately joined and became an investigator.
Yeah, a group like that, I joined too, right? So,
right, yeah.
You know, that's what will put me on the path of asking about, or at least, starting the podcast and learning more about it was 2017, the videos that the military released. It's undeniable, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Nimitz? Yeah. Starting with that, sure. That's what got me on the path. Well, I'd been investigating water sightings since probably, I think I started in about 2001. Because I became a scuba diver. And so I started thinking about the water, and it was fascinating to know that there's 70% of our earth is water. And the more research I did, the more I found, wow, everything is, a lot of them, 1 in 5 water related. And that got me on that path. And so I thought this is the time to do it. And about, April of last year, I wrote my first book, which just came out. Because I have gathered up 20 years of information, and the more and more that's coming out, it's all water related. That's the secret.
Yeah, and you're talking about starting in that before it was really sensationalized, all right? So
yeah, absolutely. It was, I'm a scuba instructor now, and when you're that involved in something, it's just my life was water. I would work at my regular job every weekend. I was in the water. Every vacation, I was taking a dive off of a cruise ship or wherever I could. I was always going diving. And, then when you're also a MUFON investigator or just even an independent investigator, you start to think. My whole mindset was in the water direction. And so those were what I focused on. And just as being a dive instructor too, I had people that were mailing me things and saying, oh, look, this happened to the water. This happened to the water. So I had 2 big file boxes just loaded with information, I thought, and several books, everything on it I would buy. And a lot out there. I could have gone on a second book, but wow, one's enough. I mean, it was my first effort. So,
what's the title of that book?
The title is The Alien Colonization of Earth's Waterways. It's a reference guide to UFO, USO, water-related activity.
Excellent. If they were going to hide anywhere on this planet, the ocean is definitely the spot. It's so vast. And then there's mountains and ravines down there that we could only map with LiDAR and other satellites and sonar. I could imagine what's down there. Plenty of places to hide.
Oh, plenty of places to hide. And I was talking to Jorge Martin. He's the investigator in Puerto Rico about sightings there. Puerto Rico is a very active area. And on his website, he shows where there's a kind of a wormhole right over ponds where crafts come in and out. You can come in and out of a wormhole underwater and not be detected. So, good hiding place.
It's remarkable. In fact, Chris Perno from MUFON was telling me this, and someone else mentioned it. Wherever there's mass sightings, there's typically a large body of water nearby.
That's true. There is, whether it's a lake, river, typically, yeah, there is. And it just, I don't know, maybe, it might seem that way to me because I'm so involved in what's going on with the water, but Alaska, off the coast of Alaska.
Yeah, Alaska.
Catalina. Oh, Catalina Island. That's just unbelievable. Well, just, really quick to explain, I guess it was fall of, I think it opened up actually Labor Day this weekend. MUFON has a museum in Pine Bush. Oh my gosh, Pine Bush, New York. Went right out of my head. Sorry. And it's my portion of the museum was to do something that had to do with water. I decided to get a 6-foot by 4-foot laminated map and start putting dots on it of water sightings. It was incredible. I surpassed 300 dots on this map, and it was only oceans and seas. I didn't do anything inland, just oceans and seas. What was documented by fishermen, military ships, cargo ships, pilots, things that they saw in and around the water, people that live on the coast. But it was absolutely incredible. And I had over 300 dots. And in some places like in the Caribbean, by Puerto Rico and in that whole area, I could have put dots 20 high. That's one dot, And then, there were the little red dots, and there's so many of them, I really couldn't even write a number on it, but I did have an index to it. But that's when I started realizing when you've got a 6 by 4 foot map laying on your floor, and you're looking at the dots, it makes you wonder. I thought, wow, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you think about what water could do, a lot of people don't consider, especially salt water. It could be a natural lubricant for a portal, right? I mean, it's definitely a great conductor, no question. So it gets my imagination often.
There's a lot there. There's deep trenches. I have those listed in the book. It's amazing how many deep water trenches we have and what our limitations are. Even a submarine, I believe, is limited to, I think, collapsible depth, I believe, is about 2,400 feet. There's deep. The ocean goes down miles in some places. We're not going to be down there. We don't go down there.
Yeah, there's mountains taller than the mountains above water down there.
Oh, right. There's a lot of places to hide. Also, a lot of resources. We don't know what they consume. There could be plankton. Maybe they're harvesting our hydrogen
natural heat
for fuel cells. I mean, there's a lot with the water.
Yeah, there's natural heating down there. If let's say hypothetically, they're below the ocean. They're in a cavern that's built into rock, like the bedrock. It's naturally heated. It's close to the core.
Well, I think if you've got enough technology to come from deep in space and go into the water, you probably don't really need that anyway.
It's true.
Your craft is probably pretty well climate controlled, and I think it has more to do with whether or not. I mean, some of the reports that I found were giant shadows of some type of a craft. It was in the Caribbean that were just moving underwater that were seen by air accidentally. Then you can move around at ease. The Navy has several documented sightings of fast movers, things that go by on sonar that aren't theirs. And I mean, one of the most notable ones is Mark D'Antonio, and he talks about how he was on a military submarine and saw a fast mover go by, and he was basically, they just said, log it, stow it, that's it. They don't talk about it.
Wow. It's a shame too. We do that because we don't want to sound crazy to our colleagues, right? I mean, that's nuts. So,
as far as the military, I don't think it's not that they don't want to sound crazy.
Yeah, they're obligated. Those guys have an oath they go to till death for the most part.
Right. They log it, they stow it, and somebody's looking at that later. But the best way to hide a secret is to have the fewest people know the secret. And so if you log something and you stow it, you can always grab that, and you already have the area. I'm sure when they logged it, they had exact, GPS readings of where that was. Somebody else could take a look at that area. Maybe there was a lot of activity in that area, but what they did right then and there is brush it off, and hopefully it doesn't go any farther.
Yeah, I have a theory that I run with about. I mean, well, it's not just my theory. I imagine it's at the grand scheme of things, but obviously, I'm under the impression that we're being studied long term. I say this a lot in other podcasts to my friends. If you and I were walking in a park and we saw an ant colony, and they were driving combustion engine cars and flying airplanes and throwing bombs at each other, we're closing that park off. We're watching them forever, as far as we're concerned. We're going to watch how they evolve.
Right.
So, I mean, that's what I think we're under. They're looking at us like, and God knows we're super entertaining, no doubt.
Yeah. Sometimes way more than we should be.
Yeah, there's no dull time here on Earth, right?
Yeah, I think they're confused by us. It might be a little bit afraid too. Sometimes I'm a little bit afraid of.
Yeah, that old saying, like if the aliens are coming, they're locking their doors.
Right. Well, too. This goes back centuries. Most people think that Christopher Columbus was the first one that had a sighting, and there were several sightings before Christopher Columbus logged it in his sighting. Logged his sighting in his logbook, his ship logbook, just before he hit the Americas. I believe it was, oh my gosh, probably 4 hours before he hit land, and that was in the Bahamas. And they had what looked like a light that was like a wax candle off into the distance. They were probably about 10 miles out from land. He and his son Ferdinand, eventually everybody on the ship was out looking at this thing. So, that's logged. There's things that go back through ancient folklore. I found passages in the Bible. And, you can go back to St. James' version of the Bible. Don't look online at some of the passages because people have taken and put the wording more in modern terms, modern slang. And I thought it was kind of cute. I saw something, and it was a sighting, and they were talking about how this one, actually, I think it was Moses, and they were mentioning how God was talking to Moses because God thought Moses was awesome. I thought, yeah, I got a Bible. I'm going to go back and look at my own researches. I'm going to stay away from the internet on that. I don't think he used awesome. That word. Right. He was awesome. But, to be serious about it, yes, there is. I use that as a reference book. You can go back through passages, and it's amazing what is back centuries, back in, oh my gosh, on pictoglyphs, the things that we're seeing. The pyramids, I haven't personally seen them, but supposedly there's craft on there that look like what Luke Skywalker was flying. So there's reports that go back and back. Well, Dave Marler is an expert on triangle craft, and he's gone back, way back. I don't know, maybe I couldn't tell you how many years, but he's gone back far enough to where it was long before we were flying aircraft, and he has found sightings that were triangle-shaped craft.
Yeah. My thoughts on I hear this from a lot of people. Like, oh, why? They're inconsistent. None of them ever look the same. Well, I mean, how many cars driving around are the same? They all have their own purpose, right? They're all different models. I say that a lot, too. It blows my mind. People are going to use that. But if you look at the triangles, right? And then and then you look at our stealth program. Was it far-fetched to say that these reports came in and we're like, well, I wonder what they got going on. Let's try to make that design. See how if it works for them, it must work for us, right?
Oh, we're copycats. Yeah, you can go back and go back to high school, go back to grade school. And some kid comes in with a cool haircut, and all of a sudden, half the school's got that haircut.
Yeah, agreed.
That's our human nature that we copy things. We'll see the way a house is built. We're like, oh wow, I kind of like that idea. So of course you can go back through through history, the elongated heads. Well, they said, they were putting rings on these babies' heads to make them elongated. Why? Who did they see that had an elongated head that they respected, or I guess would be respected enough, not feared, that they would do that? They would try to mimic that with their own child. So there is. And another thing too, there are reports of multiple different beings, that look. We had the Greys, reptilians. There's different shapes of Greys. There's a lot of different descriptions of beings depending on, I've heard anywhere from 35 to 150 different descriptions going back through records, centuries back to present time. We can't take all of these different beings and categorize them as one. They're different characteristics just on this earth. You can't compare everybody. Several of us, well, in the same country. I mean, in the United States, depending on where you go, you may not understand the other person next to you because of language. And, the people in the deep South speak a whole lot different than the people in Minnesota. The people in Brooklyn, the different accents. And that's just in our country. And that's just verbalizing. But you can't categorize a craft or what their agenda is or how they're going to come to this planet, whether or not they're permanently here, based and hidden someplace, or they're visiting and coming back and forth, whether or not it's through space or whether or not it's through time warp or time travel or wormhole. There's a lot of different species that's been or beings that have been coming to this planet for a whole long time. And that's probably why it's really hard to pin down who they are, what they are, because we're trying to categorize them as one, and it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I get that. I had a running theory on the gray aliens for a long time, and my theories are subject for evolution because I interview a lot of people, I learn a lot of things, but in the beginning of it all, I had the impression that the grays were, and the smaller ones anyhow, were advanced robots. I mean, with the with their skin being that of something organic, definitely not like ours, but the consciousness would be an upload, right? So that's why they're all cookie cutter. You can't really distinguish them from one another. But the more I talk to more people, it's not that I'm going to move away from my own theory, but I'm learning more things, right? And just like Mike Penicello has in his theory that they're grown, and there's another species of gray that's larger. But the smaller ones are ultimately they're like drones for the beehive. They're the workers.
Mm-hmm. It could be little drone clones of some type. But just by interviewing people for years, I've worked on over 1,000 cases. And, it sounds like a lot, except that a good portion of that was Venus, Mars, Jupiter, International Space Station, right. Satellites, that type of thing too, but good, hard, heavy cases. I've worked on a lot of those. And the descriptions I've had anywhere from where they've seen small grays to some that were 5'7". And if you've ever seen the description of the grays that Travis Walton describes, he said that they don't have those big black dark eyes, that he can actually see their eyes, and they're just big. He can see pupils. So some of them may be the actual beings. Some of them may be their little worker drones, and some of them may be mechanical.
Yeah.
Until we can get absolute hands-on proof, all we can do is speculate.
Yeah, and it's a good speculation too, because if we were to create us, mankind, look what we're putting on Mars currently, rovers and flying things. But if we had the budget and the technology, we would absolutely put bipedal robots on that planet to study it, because it would be more efficient. It could pick things up, it could study it. That would be the dream. So we would obviously build something smaller than us in a robotic form that could go out there and explore, which is not far-fetched from what's going on here.
Well, you think about it, robotic machinery has been building automobiles for years.
Yeah.
There's a lot of robotics in factories building toys,
Yeah.
We've got toy robots, baby dolls. Little girls have had baby dolls forever. And some of these, you put batteries in them and they move around. And this has been since I was a little girl. You could put batteries. Of course, back then there were D batteries. Now, these things, they charge, I guess, or they're chargeable, or I don't really know.
We're not that far off from having bipedal humanoid robots run around. We're not far. We're there.
I've seen specials on that. And there's several groups of people that are working on different types of robots. it's kind of scary. You know, they don't look real human right now, but that's just what's coming out on YouTube.
Yeah,
You can watch a special on that, and they've got them walking around doing commands. And
I think we're going to see some pretty crazy things in the next decade.
I believe you're right. Well, you can buy toys, the little dogs that'll do tricks and stuff. That's been around for a long time. That are toys for children. Who knows what is out there and what our government may be using out there, or what other people may be using, high-tech people that we don't even know about.
Yeah, you know, that's why I say especially with Area 51, right? The government has that location. They're there to build, you know, machines and craft that can not just compete, but protect us from our enemies. And so I believe that they absolutely need some kind of privacy there, in my opinion. And if there's aliens anywhere, I don't think it's going to be at Area 51. I think that's a scapegoat. And if they have them anywhere, they're somewhere else. And we're as long as we're staring in that direction, we're not paying attention to the other ones.
I believe what did I hear about that? They were at SR4, which is a cave that goes from the Groom Lake through a mountain into another area. Right. And I think that's been way back since Bob Lazar was talking about that. Yeah, they had me on TV locally here when everybody was going to storm Area 51. I was on the early morning news, and I said, please don't go to Area 51 and storm it. You're not going to get very far. You're not going to find aliens. Even if you make it to Groom Lake, running or however you think you're going to do it, you know, whatever is there is so many levels underground.
Yeah, listen,
all you're going to get is shot.
I don't care if it's 1 million people with rifles. They have Apache helicopters. What are you going to do? Stop it.
Exactly. They've got these underground buildings. They're just going to lock the door. I mean, it wasn't a good plan. And originally it wasn't even supposed to be a plan. It was a joke, and people took it seriously so seriously that I have a friend who's a police officer here and lives not too far from me, really, really good friend. And his uncle worked for a park service, and they used some of the park service there in Nevada to help as security. And he gave him a can of beer. It's a Bud Light, alien Bud Light, that they made up several cases that they were selling there, and he brought one back to me. So, and actually, the officer was not there. You know, his uncle said, "Here, I got you an alien beer," and he said, "Oh, here, you'll appreciate this more than me." So I have it on the shelf. So, I mean, that's how commercialized this thing got. They expected, oh my gosh, 100,000 people, and from what I heard, about 6, 8, 10,000 people showed up. If you took all the people that showed up in different groups in different places, it was way under participated. I guess you could call it.
Underwhelming outcome, right?
Yeah,
because a lot of people probably said, "Yeah, I'm not doing that. They're crazy, man. Those guys have guns, jets. You know, I have no shot." So,
I've been to the Guard Gate twice. They run a tour. If you want to take a tour and go and look at that, they do that out of Vegas. The last 3 symposiums that they've had MUFON's had in Las Vegas, 2013, 17, and then the one we just had just this past August. They take a bus tour out there. There's 3 or 4 bus tours, and we go right to the Guard Gate. We go to the black mailbox and to the extraterrestrial sign. We went to Janet Airline. That was really cool. Went over there and just went a field outside. We watched these white planes taking off and landing, and I'm videotaping people coming out of the gate. They're waving, so it's a good tour. It's not a whole lot of money. It's, I think, under $200.
So here's,
and they feed you, but you can go and look at Area 51 if you're that curious.
Yeah, I've been to Vegas a lot. I never had a desire, because even before I was reunited with a whole passion to learn more, I knew right then and there, like, that's definitely that's the scapegoat, right? That's a sliding hand trick. Here's some food for thought, though. After listening to David Fravor's interview several thousand times, they observed on radar, and I believe physically, that these craft are going from 80,000 feet down to about 1 foot. And then there's something in the water that he described that he saw about the size of an airplane. And then my imagination is where my theories come from, like most people's, right? And so I had this idea, like, well, what if they're using the craft coming down from 80,000 foot transferring them to whatever's below the surface. That takes them, and you're talking about something that's pretty close to the Catalina Islands, right? And so they're
right.
Yeah, so they're taking the people from 80,000 or the beings or whatever they may be from 80,000 foot as described, because they're saying they're going from that 80,000 down to the surface rapidly, and then there's something below the surface. We don't know how their technology works. Maybe they're automatically putting those beings into whatever's below the surface and then taking them to whatever base is underwater into the side of a potential cliff or underground underwater, right? I mean, that's what comes to my mind when I hear all this.
Could be all, everything and all of the above. There's several different types of beings. There's several different parts of the country, several different kind of craft and sightings. People, I keep referring to them as people, but they are intelligent beings. They're coming from everywhere. So absolutely, it's possible. I believe that some of them are the ones that are hovering over the water. They're obviously harvesting something. We had here in Clearwater Lake in 1973, there was a craft there here in Missouri. There was a craft hovering over Clearwater Lake that was seen by a couple of different people, including Gene Coleman, which, I had met. And she was describing the craft is, basically right over the water, thought it was sucking up something. Well, they could be sucking up plankton. Maybe that's their food. They could be harvesting hydrogen. They could be just using the water to cool whatever fuel cells. They could just be gathering up samples of water just to look at organisms in them.
Or algae.
Maybe they're algae.
Algae is believe it or not, there's a lot you could do with algae. A lot.
Well, absolutely. That's what whales eat.
Yeah, I mean, algae is there's so many applications for that. It's incredible.
Right.
Anywhere from a medicine to a substance, there's a lot you can do with it.
Oh, absolutely. So them going in the water doesn't necessarily mean they're in there hiding. Also a good place to hide if you have a craft that's, for whatever reason, is having a malfunction, like at Shag Harbor. You could put that thing right in the water and wait till you have help. And, then, I mean, that's still, Chris Stiles is still doing an investigation on that and still finding witnesses to that. But they had the one craft that was in the water and then traveled, I believe it was 20 miles underwater to a different location. Another craft, after a couple of days, came in and they repaired the craft. The two of them left. There's one instance of one reason why they were underwater, why they were at our planet is a whole different reason why they were even here to begin with, unless they were passing by, had a problem, said, we're going to try and put it down in that blue planet over there, put the craft down and hide in the water and wait for someone to come and rescue us. Could be as simple as that. Maybe they never even intended to go to Shag Harbor. That's just one instance, but look what happened with Travis Walton. They were just over there in the woods doing whatever they were doing. He came along, just at wrong place at the wrong time for him.
I think
they never intended to do anything to him except repair him.
Yeah, I just spoke with Douglas Wilson about this. Travis Walton's abduction is on him. It's on him because he did exactly what I would do. What is that? I gotta see it. I don't care. I'd run right at that thing.
Oh, right. I would too.
Yeah, and unfortunately, he got damaged. And it's like when you're studying animals in the wild. If you're a camera guy or someone on a safari, you don't get involved. But if you injure an animal, you're obligated. You got to fix them. You did it. It wasn't natural to nature. So,
and that's something else too. They could have left him there. He told me he flew above the treetops and fell like a rag doll. And I know Travis pretty well, and he said he actually believes. He said he fought him like the Dickens, trying to get away. But he absolutely believes that that's what happened. That they broke him and they fixed him pretty much. I mean, in simple terms.
Well,
and the man is very healthy too. I asked him, I said, have you had any backlash from that? And he goes, absolutely not. He's a pretty healthy guy, and surprisingly healthy.
I haven't watched his interview. I'm going to watch his interview with Joe Rogan. I haven't done it yet because I, again, want to reach out to him and speak to him differently than what other people have, because he's well documented.
Mm-hmm.
But looking at photos of him, like when you compare his photos to his age, he's in remarkable shape, above average shape, I'd say.
He is. He really is. He doesn't drink or smoke.
Yeah, he's well spoken. I mean, he can see. He speaks with clarity. And there's no mishaps in his verbal at all. I mean, he's on it.
he's a true gentleman, very polite, very, well, I hate to say well-mannered, but he is well-mannered, but he's an absolute true gentleman with just, very kind man.
Yeah,
I can't say enough good about. He's been to my house. He's actually spent the night at my house. That's kind of a long story. We had a conference, and rather than get him a hotel room, and the airport was on the halfway between where he was and my house, and so I brought him home. I told my husband, I go, look who, I got Travis Walton's going to spend the night in our spare bedroom. And it was kind of funny because just a couple of weeks before we had seen Fire in the Sky, and he actually knew who Travis was.
Yeah, that movie scared me as a kid.
He kept his suit coat on and his tie. And I'm like, Travis, lay back a little bit. You're sitting on the couch watching TV. So, very just kind man.
Yeah, that movie scared me when I was a kid. Fire in the Sky, that did it for me. So
yeah, when you ask him about that, ask him. A lot of that was enhanced. They didn't have all that goo and all that. Well, from what he told me on that they had sets from another movie that they wanted to get him. They wanted to use them a second time or something.
That makes sense. That's Hollywood for you. Because hey, that's right. A really interesting story, Travis. But what can we do to spice it up a little bit? You know what I mean? So,
exactly. The story. Just tell the story. It was good enough as it was.
That's all of Hollywood.
Hollywood.
You can't even watch a well-documented historical piece of time without them adding something. It's impossible.
Well, look at the movie Cleopatra. So what do you say? They enhance everything.
So imagine this in your mind, right? You and I are on the moon. We're sitting there, and they're like, all right, well, it's time for us to go down to Earth, right? And so a craft, you board this craft, it slowly lowers you to Earth, goes to the atmosphere, however smoothly it's gonna, takes you to the surface of the ocean, and then I'm gonna use the word beam because I can't think of a better word, but beam into another craft that's below the surface. It then takes you down under the ocean to a rock face that opens up a doorway, and then there's an entire city in there. And this is and then none of this is, obviously this is all my imagination, because again, in listening to David Fravor and the other pilots and other witnesses in the radar, it sounds like a system to me, like an elevator system, and it sounds like someone would greet, like all of it clicks to me for that. And as my imagination goes, anyhow, what it really is, no idea.
They're coming in and out of the water. And have been for centuries. So, so they're coming in and out of the water like they live there. That's why the name of my book, The Alien Colonization of Earth's Waterways, we're referring to them as visitors. Are they? Some of them might be, but are some of them living underwater, just exactly like you said, in underwater cities? Someplace under their underwater craft moving around. They're coming and going with these in different parts, and just ignore us. You have these Navy pilots that are chasing them, and they're just like, yeah, okay, yeah, right, and just going about their business and going underwater, and then later on coming back out. I've found reports that was just crazy where they just see these things hovering over the water and just follow them, and they follow along. And there's one report I have where they're on a ship. It's a Navy cruiser, and they're out on maneuvers. This thing it's a light that's next to them following along the ship at about 2 a.m. or so, and pretty soon it overtakes them. Just it's alongside, overtakes them. They think it's some kind of a submarine. It's not picked up on radar, not picked up on sonar, not picked up on anything. All they can see are lights. And then pretty soon this thing's in front of them, and they're thinking, well, it's a ship or a submarine. And then it just slowly lifts up in the air and leaves. They're like, what? So,
there's a lot of people that too, they're trying to say that based on what they're seeing. I have to believe in my heart that there's nothing evil about them. It's completely benign, because if they weren't, I think that we'd have been dealt with already, right?
Well, there's different beings. I've heard some of them, that some of the tests that they do, that's really invasive. It seems to me like Betty Hill was treated fairly well. So was Travis Walton. Those, two famous abductions. But then some of the others, there's, cow mutilations, which they're saying that's government. I think it's all agenda. I've heard where some of them are not. There's these experiments, and they're treated just like a piece of meat. And then you have other people where they're talking to them mentally and calming them down. two different types of alien beings. I believe if they were going to do something that was extremely harmful to humans, they would have done it by now. They're not going to wait. They've been around for centuries. And so if they wanted to destroy us, harm us, do whatever, they would have done it long before we had missiles, for heaven's sake. Well, they would have taken care of this planet when we had bows and arrows, but not wait until we've got atomic bombs that we can semi-fight back with. So I don't think, and whether or not it's, like Star Trek, whether or not there's a federation out there, whether there's some kind of a law that says they really can't, that they can come to our planet, but they can't interfere with anybody else, interfere with another planet's, I guess, evolution or progression or whatever, of their future, change their future, alter how they are, alter their future.
They're probably on
may or may not be.
They're on the National Geographic laws, right? Because same for us when we're out watching. All right, I love watching Big Cat Diary. Love that series. Wish it would come back. So they're out there watching these cats. Their only involvement is to record. So if, let's say, a cub is being attacked by another animal, we can't get involved because we're there to study nature as it is. We can't alter it in any way, shape, or form other than if we hit it with the car, we're obligated. Like Travis Walton, right? So I think, it ultimately is benign. Circling back to the idea of, why would they need resources here? Well, we're currently studying Mars and we want to eventually terraform it, right? The end goal. So the first thing we have to figure out is what resources are there so we could fuel oxygen. So we're not traveling to and from Earth. It's more feasible. It's budget friendly that we could get what we need there. For them, if they're here, whatever they might have found in the oceans might be plentiful. And we don't know how their technology works or what they use. So something that they found on there works specifically for their technology, right? So I make room for a lot of those ideas too.
Well, right. And it may be all of them. You may have some that are just a natural curiosity. You may have other ones who are harvesting minerals, and some kind of our resources, but the gases, whatever. You could have some that are, like I said, that maybe Shag Harbor, that was just an unfortunate accident, along with Roswell was another unfortunate accident that had to do with microwave radar and a very bad thunderstorm. That was never intended. But all we can do is try and speculate with human reasoning. And that's the biggest part of trying to figure this out. We're humans trying to use human reasoning to figure out what beings that may be centuries, if not 1,000 years, maybe some of them ahead of us, and maybe we're not even close. And I had mentioned one time before that it's kind of funny that it's all a piece of a puzzle, and the more pieces of the puzzle that you find and you put together, the bigger the picture. Our problem is that we may have a dozen different puzzles that are mixed in one box, and we're trying to put the pieces together, and it doesn't make any sense because we're trying to categorize everything all together in one as one.
Yeah.
And we may have part of this right and part of that right. But we're always trying to put human emotions and human reasoning with all of what's going on. And so I try and stick the best I can with just facts. Yeah. That's why when I read reports and like I said in the book too, I gathered up as much information I could, and it's a reference book, and it's like, okay, here it is. Use your own judgment. Look at that. Here it is. Look at that. This is it. If you can add to that, if this can take you to further research, and maybe you can find out something that I didn't. Same thing with crop circles. There's people out there. That's not my specialty, but I think the more that people communicate, the more that there's shows like yours where we can talk and we can communicate, we can exchange ideas. Somebody's going to be listening and say, hey, you know what? Did you know this? And we're like, no, I didn't. There's another piece of the puzzle. We're going to get this figured out. We're getting smarter and smarter, and we're also communicating more about what was going on. The days of hiding all this are gone.
Yeah.
There's an interest now that the Navy released it. We're going to figure it out, a good portion of it.
If I had to convey a message, right? If I had to say to the world, do you really want to know what these things are? If you really want, so here's the effort it takes to travel the vast distances that they traveled, and or even if they were able to use a wormhole, mind you, they did that as a species. There's no way they had division. So if the only thing I could say, and again, it's a message I will convey, until we start treating each other a lot better, we really need to do away with the racism, the religious draws, the politics, all these. We have more reasons to divide than we do to come together. And you don't see dismay in a beehive. And I hate to reference us with bees, but bees have one purpose. They work as a colony. They do everything together. And there's no, you don't see bees having fits about who's, they don't care about the differences. So like for us, for example, if we're traveling to another planet, we find a humanoid species, and all the effort it took us to get there, and we're very like-minded and peaceful, because we have to be for one to travel. Imagine traveling with someone you don't like on a spaceship for that kind of time. Forget it. You'll kill that guy. And then you get there, and these people are barbaric. They're beating each other to death with bats. We obviously, here's our attitude as humans. Well, perhaps we should just watch them and not get involved. They're killing each other, so they're not ready yet. Let's just see how they go. Let's see how they evolve. Save for that. Circle back to the ants. We saw ants with that power. We would just observe for a long time.
And that could very well be true. And I mean, it is in certain circumstances. But unfortunately, when you listen to the news, all you hear, no matter what political, party you belong to, all you hear from everybody is all the bad, and the bad, and the bad. Yeah. People are good. And, for the most part, people are very good. They're very kind. My brother-in-law came out from out of state, and he was here in Missouri for the past week, and they're moving. They bought a travel trailer. They bought a piece of property, and he was just amazed that everybody here in my area, Jefferson County, St. Francis County, they were so helpful. They helped him. He got a post office box. He got a new driver's license. He got his taxes paid. Everybody all along the way with everything. He said, I can't believe how nice and how helpful everybody was. And I said, you get out in the rural area, and that's what you have. But where he lives, he's kind of in a city area.
Yeah.
And I don't think that people are really, when you get into the city, people get mad. They're too crunched up together.
Yeah.
They get agitated. You put people in all that traffic all day long, and you're going to get, agitated, or, rush hour. But you go out into the rural areas, and for the most part, people are very nice. Out where I live, if you break down, there's going to be somebody right there to help you before there's ever a tow truck. Yep. So I don't think people are as bad as they're being portrayed.
No, not at all.
And hopefully that trend will go more in that direction. I mean, look at Americans for the most part. There's a worldwide disaster. We're the first ones to come over and just try and start to help. Now, hopefully these alien races aren't picking all this news up like they were. What was that? The I Love Lucy episodes way back in the 50s.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, these people, they're crazy. I'm not going over there. But I have to be optimistic that maybe that's I don't know.
I want to be optimistic, but when I speak about us all being equal as a species, I'm not meaning America. I mean this planet.
Yeah.
Like it's going to take all of us. And like, I don't look, I'm apolitical. I have no political standing. I nothing independent, not even that. I just don't care. It's because I don't find I never find anything in politics that ever made me say, wow, that's great. I've never heard it. It's like, I've heard great ideas. Don't get me wrong, but I've never seen anything come to fruition that made me say, wow, they did it. So for us as a whole, for a species to get along, especially if another intelligent species comes along, I would imagine they would expect us to be at the same level as them before establishing any kind of communication. I imagine anyway.
I think you're right. And, there are sections where, sections of the world, areas of the world where people have a real tough time getting along. And, and I understand that. But Ronald Reagan, though, he said exactly what you said. He came right out and said, when we need to all get together, what would bring us together would be somebody from, you know, from other worlds
an
come
alien
to
threat.
our planet.
Yeah, he said it clearly too.
And right, and he said, and this would unite this planet, you know, just like the movie Independence Day. You know, that's what unites the planet, and maybe that's a little bit more of what we need. Maybe that's why they're starting to the Navy, maybe some of the other militaries. I know Russians been releasing files. You go to countries like Brazil, my gosh, Mexico, the Caribbean. Yeah, this stuff is openly talked about. It's reported. The police file reports. They don't think everybody's crazy. So I just think you're right. We need to get more in that area. Maybe if somebody does land a spaceship, right, where everybody can see, maybe we're all going to come together and.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I spoke with Steve Murr. I'm going to have him on again. He's a paranormal specialist, and he's also investigated ufology and cryptozoology. And he had a very good point, and I agree with him on this. For one, if you want to study these subjects, you can't have barriers. You can't be the paranormal and the ufologist and not see eye to eye. There's a lot of parallels, plenty of parallels between the paranormal and the ufology. And what greater thing to have than this enormous network where someone in California gets information and they're not so concerned about, well, I'm going to save this for YouTube so I get my likes. They're not concerned about that. You have a network and you guys cross-communicate. We'd have a lot more answers today. I promise that much. We'd have a lot more answers today.
That's what MUFON has done since 1969. We have investigators all over the world in 43, 44 different countries. That's what we do. And we're the only group that actually investigates. There might be some other smaller groups, but we're the biggest group in the world and worldwide that investigate these sightings seriously. When I have anything that happens in Missouri, it goes to Kentucky, but anything that happens goes to MUFON headquarters, and that is sent to the individual states. I'm the state director of Missouri, so I know of everything that happened here. I have 19 investigators across my state, so I assign it to the 2 investigators that are closest to where the report came from. And in turn, we also investigate the states on either side. If you're up in northern Missouri, you're going to investigate what went on in Nebraska and Iowa. Near me, I investigate what's going on in Illinois, Kansas City, Kansas, down south, it's Arkansas. We all get together and talk as a whole, the state directors, because things go across state lines too. So we have a very good network of that. And what I've been doing is for MUFON for the last about 5 years or so, we've gone through all of our old files. I'm an archivist for MUFON, and we're trying to get everything right now. First of all, we had to get, more memory on our website so we could bring all of it forward. But we've redacted out just the names of people and their jobs and their addresses, because I don't know about you, but my mom had the same phone number almost her entire life. So you don't want to take a sighting from 20 years ago and then maybe mom's still living there. But we're trying to get it all on the website. So there's one place, I believe it's going to be called Project Aquarius, where there's one place where you can go to a website and go back and see the history of what's going on, do your research from all over the world. Yeah. So we are working on that, but most people don't know yet. So there are people out there that are trying to do that. The internet too. The internet's a great place. I watch YouTube. I watch that almost every night to find out what has happened someplace else. We're living in a wonderful time right now where we have several resources where we can combine with people across the world and compare notes. So, I think this is all going to come out.
Yeah, listen,
eventually.
I spoke to a lot of MUFON people, and Douglas Wilson, him and I had a conversation, very interesting, because Douglas Wilson's the director of investigations for MUFON for America, right?
Right.
And he's got really fantastic, his ideas and the way they should approach, spot on. And one thing I could say is, I commend MUFON as a whole. What diversity, it's great diversity. Everyone I'd spoken to is professional. Everyone has their own opinion, their own train of thought. It's like what America should be, right? No one judges. Everyone's different, and it's just a diversity and very well rounded. I have a reoccurring role with Mike Penicello and Dan Spell coming on monthly now to discuss cases. MUFON is so far, I'm very impressed. I can't speak highly enough about him. I'm really impressed with the diversity. Even yourself, there's a lot of information. And, yeah, you know, Douglas and I were discussing, there's something he was talking about on the episode that we did, Madar.
Oh, right. I have one.
Yes, I'm getting one. I ordered it. I think everyone should have one. If you are into ufology anywhere on this planet, buy one. And can't be a more powerful network. You get a hit, everyone else can confirm it. You have like a little website where everyone can confirm it. I mean, I think that's great.
Oh, yeah. And I think we just got a fifth one. I believe there's 5 in Missouri now spread across the state. Then you can go over to National UFO Recording Center, Peter Davenport's site, and he's got them on there. So when I get a case that I'm working on, the first thing I do is go over to his site and see if there's a correlating case. And sure enough, there'll be a Madar hit. I'm thinking, wow, there's something else that's confirming this, or at least, something at least happened, because you've got this Madar.
You'll have undeniable tangible evidence on your hands worldwide.
Oh yeah, it's electromagnetic field was in the area. Oh yeah, this gentleman has worked on that for years, and I'm so happy that he's finally made it affordable enough to where people like me can have this thing in my house. I just, we've all got some type, like most of us have internet. You just plug it right into your Ethernet, and there you are.
Yeah, that's
little bitty box.
When I discussed that with Douglas, I was supremely impressed. And you know what? Again, I'd spoken to a lot of MUFON people, and I probably would not have done so. Shout out to Joseph Jordan. He made that happen. He put me in contact with all the MUFON people. He was my first MUFON guest. He's got a really diverse, different point of view. Everyone I've interviewed has a great point of view. But one thing that stays consistent across the board with MUFON members, they're all very professional, very courteous. They all speak well. There's no hostilities, very level-minded. So my hat's off the way they select.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I appreciate that, because I don't know if you knew, but I'm also on the MUFON board of directors.
I know. That's why I got you.
I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. I'll pass that along. That's very kind of you. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Yeah. And so, again, Joseph Jordan is the guy that made it happen for me, by the way. Wow. And he's a MUFON member in South Korea. And wow. He's got some really... I had to have 3 episodes. I might have to have a 4th one, because his perspective is so mind-bending. It's things I've never considered. But... For you, I imagine over the years you've seen some things, but is there anything that you've seen that made you take a step back?
Yes. Oh my gosh, a lot. When you investigate as many cases as I have, we have a hotspot areas, and if you have an area that a lot of activity, like Marley Woods. I worked with Marley Woods, Ted Phillips and Marley Woods, probably, I think, for 3 years. I'm still on the team now. Tom Ferrario has taken over, but that's being described more and more as similar to a Skywalker Ranch. The people that we've interviewed there, I've taped lights that I can't explain. We also have an area out here that I don't want to give where it is right now, but it's an area by a river. And I've been working on that case with my team now. I believe we're at 11 or 12 investigators. Alien Highway, my brother Chuck Zukowski was was out there with the Alien Highway group, and they taped what was going on in the area. I've been working on the case since November of 2018, and it's still an ongoing case of unexplained lights that are in and around and in and out of the river there. In a whole big section, a whole big area. I've also, Roswell, I've had some interesting experiences in Roswell. I had it's real quickly, we had my brother had a light bar, an LED light bar across the front of his new pickup truck with a remote control, and he hit the thing, and I think it went flash, 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 flash. What we did we were out in the middle of nowhere. We had spoke there. It was in 2016, and we were speakers. So we decided, rather than do some of the commercial type activities, I think there was an alien ball or something, we went out about 45 minutes out into the desert toward the Ragsdale site. And we just backed up against a cow gate on the side of the highway. He's showing me this thing with the remote control, and something blinked back at us at about 60 degrees in the sky. about the size of an aspirin, perfectly round, defined edges, bright white. And it was white with a little bit of a yellowish tint. And it wasn't Mars because Mars was to my right. And I said, hit it again. And it blinked at us twice. It just flashed at us. Stationary in the sky. Now, if you have a drone isn't going to be that stationary in the sky. It's going to jiggle back and forth. There's going to be vibration. This thing was just like it was planted in the sky, just stuck. Not a cloud in the sky at all. And he hit the remote control again. It reacted back to us 3 times in a row with a double flash. We went back the following year and went out there and it was kind of a weird experience where we ended up someplace that we shouldn't have been. And we ended up with an hour and a half of missed time. So we were headed someplace and ended up someplace else. We're like, what happened here? And we've been in that area. We could drive that area almost blindfolded. We've been going out there since 2000. So there's those that have happened. I've had instances where I've set up camera equipment and had everything, all the batteries die. I keep an extra Ziploc when I go anywhere of batteries separate because these don't even have to be turned on. Just everything that I've got, night vision, all my cameras, my computer, everything just dies. So I've had enough experiences to where I know that there's something out there.
Yeah, and it compels you to continue looking.
Oh, yeah, doggone it. That's what happens too. Just you think like, oh, well, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of people like Stanton Friedman told me he never did see anything.
Yeah.
And I'm not the case for me. If I want to see something, if I want to have an experience, my goodness, Margie Kay, Missouri MUFON's assistant state director in the Kansas City area, opposite end of the state from me.
Oh, yeah. Shout out to Margie Kay and the UnX Network, by the way. UnX Network. I'll be on there Saturday nights.
Wow. Oh, really?
Yeah, Saturday nights on X. Yeah, shout out to Margie Kay. Shout out to Race Hobbs.
Oh, yeah, I love them both. We've seen something together, the three of us. I was with Race and Margie one time, and it was something we couldn't explain. It was at Eureka Springs. But Margie Kay, every time the two of us go out together, we have some type of experience. It's that I don't know. She's a phenomenal person.
She is.
And I know that if I'm going to go someplace, whether we're going to see something we can't explain.
Listen, if you gave Margie Kay enough resources, she'd take over Europe in a heartbeat.
She would. She edited my book. She's my editor. Let's say it would be, I guess it'd be editor producer. She helped me write my book. So a great shout out to Margie Kay. She's very good friend, wonderful person.
She's phenomenal, unbelievably phenomenal.
She is.
Well, before we close out, let's talk about your book one last time.
Oh, and I feel bad to keep kind of plugging it. I've never wrote a book before, but
plug. That's what I'm here for. I got you on the show. You're my guest. You did me a favor. Plug away.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Well, I keep referring to it because it's information that I've gathered. It all goes into this book, but. I've had people handing me things. John Schuessler from MUFON, Dr. Robert Wood was passing things off to me. The moment they found out I was a scuba diver, then scuba instructor, I'll be someplace and people will just say, here, you need to look at this. And for years, they've been sending me things. I've been doing research, gathering information, every bits and pieces. And it's unbelievable how many ships, boats, the military, just military craft, ship logs. I have a whole thing that I converted it from an Excel document and put it all one chapter. And the funny thing about it is that these are sightings that a lot of them in the military have had, and they call it into MERIT, which is MER. Let's see, I think it's MERIT. But it's MERIT, which it's the abbreviation for basically if you have something that you want to report that's unknown to that agency and you're with the military or even I guess a cargo ship, that's where you report it to. But the point is that I explained it at the beginning that some of these they say, well, it was this satellite-like object or this ball of light, or maybe it was a shooting star. but the descriptions are of something that they're trying to visually rationalize what they saw.
Yeah.
So it's, like if you've never seen a boat, you've never seen a car, someone would say, well, the difference between a boat and a car is one's got wheels and one goes in the water. But if you see something, you've got to say, well, that, a boat is a car without wheels and it can go in the water. So, I mean, that's kind of the kind of thing. So I made sure and put all of them in there because some of them may have ended up being identified, but a lot of them were not. So it was under description, and they would say star or starlight or satellite. And that was just a description, but I couldn't believe a whole chapter of just that, things that these guys that are on watch every single night for months, all of a sudden, one time we'll see something they can't explain and report it. And I think that's pretty significant because they know the sky. They're out there every night.
Yeah, those guys are spending hours and months and years out there. They've seen, it's like when you're out there that long, you could pretty much say, all right, that's a satellite. All right, that's Mars. Right. When these guys see something unexplainable, it's unexplainable, right?
It's absolutely unexplainable. And then it's just the sightings. A lot of Russian documents were released, and I could believe that there's several reports of 10-foot tall aliens. There was a 7 divers, I believe they were at 156 feet, that came across these aliens, and this is in Russia, and they're 10 foot tall with these suits that look like a silvery skin. And that didn't go well because they decided after they saw them, they came back to the surface, decided to go back down. They were told to go back down and throw a net over one of them. And what they did was the lead alien out of these 4 aliens put its hand out, and they all immediately went to the surface from depth. 3 of them, I've heard a couple different reports. I heard that was 6 of them, heard again that there was 7 of them, but it did happen. I got several different reports from different people, but 3 of them died immediately. They took the other 4 and put them all in one decompression chamber because they had 2, one was broke. And out of those 4, 1 survived. And now you can't dive in Lake Baikal anymore. Huh. So, I mean, there's also the Baltic Sea. There was someone that was down. I believe it was, in 1982. And then I'm thinking 1984 in the Baltic Sea, they saw this 10-foot tall silvery creature swim by while, they were in a submarine. So Russia has very large alien beings, though there were bones that were found in the area, 10-foot tall bones in a cave. So, I mean, that's something that most people don't know about.
I'm glad you brought that up. I have a guy coming on the show in the next couple of months where he talks about that same thing in Russia, about these large skeletal structures he found.
Uh-huh.
And it's got me intrigued.
Well, then just the areas. You could go back to Catalina Island, right off of California, the southern coast of California. There were sighting. 3 military guys were there on leave, and they saw a sighting the same weekend. I would believe it was July 5th as the whole Roswell incident, 1947. So, I mean, there's a lot of sightings. There's almost a whole chapter. Preston Dennett wrote a whole book on what happens in and around Catalina Island. There's a lot of documentation, so I put all of that in there. But it's amazing how many sightings around water. The Hudson Valley has been going on for years and years, and of course there's Shag Harbor.
Krista Perno constantly tells me about Hudson Valley.
I love him. He's great.
He is always talking about Hudson. I have to go. I'm going to be doing a documentary. I'm going to travel and do a documentary. And
great.
I have to go there because he has sold me on that place. I have to go.
Oh, yeah. We've been trying to dive in the area for the last couple of years, and we can't get permission. And that's the biggest deterrent for me. I'm a diver that can't go in the water. The places where we have permission to go or where we can freely go is too deep. Places like that, we can't get permission to go in because a lot of times it's reservoirs.
Yeah.
But the book is basically it's a reference guide. It starts with the Bible, and then it has a chapter of us famous sightings, and then logged ship sightings. I have a whole chapter on just Alaska and what's seen there. There's also the Bermuda Triangle, the Alaska Triangle. We have the Bermuda Triangle. There's also a triangle outside a Devil's Triangle, off Japan. So there's at the very end, I found documents that were just released that from the Black Vault. And some of those documents are in there toward the very back, government documents showing that back in the 1980s, we were doing remote viewing. I found out as way back, actually, the mid 1970s, because I know somebody that was involved in that military project.
Yeah, believe it or not, the CIA was very. After talking to Margie K, after I'd spoken to Margie K about remote viewing, I did some digging. Here's one thing I do, by the way. I don't learn anything about my guests before they come on. I like it to be, I just met you, we're going to have a great conversation, and then I learn, and then I buy their book, and then I watch their videos, and I like doing that. It keeps it fresh for me, right? So it's not rehearsed. I don't have a question sheet 1 to 10. So Margie K had a discussion with me about the remote viewing. So I looked more into it afterward. I found out the CIA was very heavily involved with that.
Oh yeah.
It's a scary amount involved. So you can't dismiss things because it sounds funny to you. You don't realize how strong those applications are. Overmore, how strong our brain is. Remarkably strong.
Project Sunstreak. They had these people that they were training. They were looking at, some of them, it looked like they were looking at Mount Hayes in Alaska, just from the description. It looked like some of them, they were looking at the North Pole, that, the Russians have bases there. And some of the bases, that's something else too, because before you could try and speculate what is ours and what is not ours, I mean, you have to know what we have on Earth. I also have a chapter about we were back in Civil War, we had a submarine. So you have to know what capabilities we have underwater, what our limitations are, and you can compare that with what is going on, and you know that this is something that's out of the normal, especially as far back as some of this goes. But then I also showed too that there's bases. We have underwater bases. We have bases at the North Pole, the South Pole. We had Admiral Byrd. So the Russians right now are trying to just dominate the North Pole. And it seemed like some of the remote viewing that our government was doing was remote viewing the way that their buildings looked up there. They're drawing this.
Right.
So they're trying to spy on the Russians with remote viewers. I thought, wow, that was some of the things that our government is doing. You never even imagine that they would go that route. So there's really something to remote viewing.
When it comes to being the strongest there is as far as government, I don't doubt anything they do. You know what I mean? I don't doubt any of it.
Well, you get a lot of people with a lot of crazy or unique ideas, and I guess they're going to try a little bit of everything. I had heard that back in the 70s that they were trying to locate troops. So they thought, well, if we can locate these troops, that they could use remote viewers to remote view toward these troops and then maybe get them to change their mind to go someplace else, or, influence them mentally. And then also too, HARP. That's scary. There's three different HARP facilities right there just north of Ketchikan.
Yeah, listen,
why do you need three?
For those people that doubt that exists, I was one of them.
I got a brochure in my book.
Yeah, when you go to Google,
a copy of it.
Yeah, when you go to Google Earth, you will see it. You can't deny it.
All right.
Whatever it may be, it's an enormous complex, right?
It absolutely is. And they've got HARP facilities all over the world. A little scary as they're trying to pull down, I believe it's the ionosphere, and they're going to pull it down. And they said, well, it has to do with weather control. Really? If you look back at some of the stuff that Tesla was doing, I think he had an idea that, you could be using weapons by pulling down parts of the atmosphere.
Oh, yeah.
What scares me is, what if they pull this thing down too far? What if they blow out our atmosphere? I don't like people that I don't know what they're doing. They're messing around with our atmosphere.
Listen, can you imagine? Could you imagine controlling lightning?
Oh, I know.
Forget it. What do you do against that? There's nothing you could do against that. Even take cover. That's what you got. You don't counter.
They can just hunt you down with lightning. So anyway, it's kind of it's a reference book. There's a little bit of everything that'll make you think. A couple different documents in there that, there's been studies on how long a human can stay underwater and some of the different effects. There's also Project I went right out of my mind. The Blue Planet Project. And that's something that I was led in a direction years ago and said that's something you really need to read. I put just one section of it in the book, printed out the things about an inch thick, but it's something worth reading because that's really, really off the wall. It talks about the different alien races and different kinds of ships and how many different races of aliens. I believe it said it was 160, but the information that was provided, this gentleman had to take off and hide in Europe. Someone was trying to kill him. I mean, so he got all this information out. And when I had someone that told me years ago, and I don't want to mention his name, but he's a very famous investigator. He said, you really need to look at that. And once you read that and then you go from there, he said, that'll give you a whole new perspective. It's like a base to start to which direction do I want to go in. And, that's something I really need to be looking more at. I mean, it's really off the wall.
Well, I'm definitely going to check that book out. There's another person. I don't know if you're familiar with this individual or the book, Charles James Hall.
Oh yeah.
Now my aunt brought that up. My Aunt Maureen brought that name to me. I never heard that name before. She said it before. I looked it up, and he has a book, and there's an amazing amount of stuff surrounding that guy.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. All right, now, Charles James. Okay. Oh, Colonel Holt is the other one from Rendlesham, but there's a couple Holts.
Right.
I mean, there's also Walter Hott. That's Walter Hott, though. That was Holt. That was from Roswell. But yes, I have heard of that book. I absolutely have it because I confused him with somebody.
I'm going to track him down and try to get him on the show because I look like I told you earlier, I'm not going to read his book till I speak to him. Mm-hmm. I like the idea of meeting someone new like I did with you. We had a great conversation. And then I read their material and learn about them after. All right. So it's a good gathering point for me. And again, I'm going to reach out to Travis Walton. I told Stacy Wright I would. I haven't yet. I'm still trying to kind of collect what it is I want him to speak more about his opinions, theories, and thoughts. I mean, he could reference his past, but I just want to talk to Travis as Travis. You know what I mean? Right. And just hear his thoughts. I mean, he's a smart guy.
And what's really sad is I've, met him several times as a speaker. We'll end up at dinner together, several of us. And after he speaks, this guy's genuine. After he does his presentation that evening, when he's sitting at dinner, he's very, very quiet. And it's almost like he's relived this thing and it's a traumatic experience for him. Once again, he's reliving it as he's talking about it. And it's really affecting him. And he didn't even notice it. We were at dinner and he was really quiet. And then afterwards, we all just, we were sitting outside. It was at a conference. And I said, wow, you're really bothered by this, aren't you? And he says, I didn't notice that people could actually see that it bothered me that much. But can you imagine having some kind of a traumatic experience?
Yeah, listen.
Like the gentleman did, and then just every time he does a presentation, he's reliving it a little bit. And he's remembering a little bit more and a little bit more every time too. That's got to be awful.
Yeah, listen, for those people that cast doubt on that, I had an injury to my left leg years ago, bad one. And every time today, and we're talking 20 years later, every time I think about it, it still irks me. It still troubles me to my core. And that's just a leg injury. Imagine what he went through. You know what I mean?
Oh, and I mean, that man is, one of the bravest people in the world to not only go through that, but to come out and actually talk about it.
Yeah.
But he's got a phenomenal sense of humor too. That guy is great. And memory. Oh my gosh. We were driving along, coming back from Columbia, Missouri to the St. Louis area. And he was talking about commercials and old commercials from when he was a kid. And he was quoting them word for word. We're like, how do you remember that? The guy's really smart, really nice.
I think they gave him some upgrades. Listen, I have never witnessed anything in my life. I say this because I'm unlucky. Everyone, but I was talking to a friend of mine, like if aliens ever came and they got me, I would bargain with them. Like, all right, listen, you don't have to just, what do I get out of this? You can plug whatever you please, cut whatever you want, but what do I get? I want to be smarter, taller. You know what I mean? I would bargain with them. So that's just how I am. It's the nature, man.
Maybe, like I've had missing time. Maybe I have. but I don't remember. So
yeah,
I don't know.
I just want an upgrade.
I'd like to feel like I was a little bit argumentative if I was abducted anywhere along the way and I don't remember. Being the person that I am, they probably sent me back and said, "Yeah, we need to get rid of this crazy woman here. It's just,
I'll pick
she's too much trouble. Send her back."
I'll pick a shirt to wear every night to bed. It'll have a list of demands on it.
Yeah. But the thing is that I'm glad that people could come out and actually talk about this now, because it is something I truly believe they're not visitors. A good portion of them are colonists. They're residents. They live here. And it's just people have their own lives. They're moving on with it. And they just haven't put it in perspective. All you have to do is just look at the evidence. I'll tell you what, while I was looking at the evidence, I put the whole thing down for about a week, and it scared me a little bit, because I thought, oh my gosh, they're not visiting. They're here. That's when I changed the name of the book.
Yeah. And, based on that, and so here's for society anyway, let's speak in a hypothetical. They're here. They're among us. Would they reveal themselves to us? Again, this circles back to, we can't get along with each other. Why would they even bother? Like, we need another card to pull on some other race for whatever reason. And it would be a shame if that we ended our own racism to be racist against another species. It would be a shame.
Oh, right.
I think we have a lot of maturing and a lot of evolving to do before we can get to the point of communication, personally.
You're right. I mean, as far as the normal person, I'm sure there have been captured alien beings. What was it? Jared, I think, was one. I know there's also Thor is supposed to be around. There's a whole book about Margie will know a lot about Thor.
I'll have to, yeah. So, this isn't the first time I'm hearing this, by the way. I've heard this before.
First time I heard about Thor was I was in Colorado at the UFO Watchtower in Hooper. And someone came to me and had told me about this gentleman, Thor, and I believe that was like 2001. And then I've heard from all over the United States. People have mentioned Thor.
Yeah,
Thor's around.
I
don't know if it's one name for several different beings, but Thor gets around a lot.
I do a lot of off podcast interviews for a lot of people that don't want the attention. They just want to speak their piece. And this one guy was bringing up Thor to me, and I was like, in my mind, I'm like, is this guy kidding with me? Is he playing a game? Like, I thought he was joking. Again, I know very little about these subjects. I literally, something I was into as a kid, and then 2017 rolls around, and the UFOs from the military released the videos, and then I'm back in the subject again. And that's as much as I know. So my approach to the podcast and the documentary and everything I plan on doing, there's no filters on, and I'm like I said, I just met Debbie. I learned something from Debbie today. Tomorrow I'll speak to the next person, and I'm just going to gather information as I go and eventually have a network. So when I travel and do the documentary, even like yourself, I'll call on you when I'm in your area. I'll know where to film.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. You're welcome. Hopefully we can take you someplace where there's a little bit of action. That's all.
Yeah, look, whether there's action
roll
or not.
Roll the dice. Yeah. Wherever the latest. There's always hotspot areas too, but that's a wonderful thing that you're doing, because the more people and the more information, we're going to be cross-referencing each other. I mentioned Thor. You said someone else had mentioned Thor. And now you're saying, gosh, you talked to Margie, and Margie knows a whole lot more about Thor than she knows. She's forgot more than I know about Thor. So there's a lot of information. All of this needs to get out. And the more people that talk about it, the more that we realize this is something that exists. And it's the laugh factor basically is gone too.
Yeah.
And if you notice that my grandchildren, that was, and all their friends, they don't say, okay, are there aliens? They say, well, there's aliens, there's people. They refer to them as existing. There isn't anything funny about it. They know they're around. They know that there is other life outside this planet.
That's part of that's part of evolving, right? That's part of evolution.
It's
Desensitized to it, yeah.
There you go, desensitized.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's been a long day.
When
Desensitized to all of us, starting back, cereal boxes and toys.
Yeah, of course.
We're all desensitized to the fact now that little kids, and my granddaughter was a year and a half old. She picked up a little rubber alien I had in the house, and she said, hand it to me, it says alien. I thought, what? Where did she hear that? Probably on TV.
What's going to happen is one day an alien's going to be around and some girl or guy, and they're going to be like, oh my God. And they're going to be like, what's it, the alien? Like, no, this is just video on my Instagram, because they're going to be desensitized. It's not going to be a big deal for very long. It's the evolution of us mentally, and we need it.
Yeah, we do. And hopefully we'll be, like you said, a lot kinder to them that a lot of us are to each other.
I would hope that we get to that point, because again, I still can't comprehend racism and all these divisions and reasons to dislike one another and be in this camp versus that. That's insanity. Like, you can't, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life. So
people just, I'm lucky. I live in an area where everybody's really nice to each other, and then I watch the news. I'm like, oh, that's really awful. But, I mean, for the most part, I get treated very well. People are so nice. And I guess I'm very, very fortunate.
Yeah, you are indeed. Well, Debbie, you have a platform here. Whenever you have a study, a case, or anything you want to talk about, by any means, you let me know. It's a simple email.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. All I need to tell everybody is look at the water, look at everything you can find on the water, everything that's on TV about water. When you're outside at night and it's a new moon, look to your rivers, look to your lakes. There's some great night vision equipment out there now. I have an Onyx, Psionics, it's called, Psionics Aurora video camera that's night vision, that's unbelievable. And it's not, it's military grade night vision. It's not infrared. And you can pick up lights that you can't see with your own eye spectrum.
Perfect.
So I've been using that. So that's a lot out there. Just keep your ears and eyes open.
Yeah, between you and Douglas, I'm buying a lot of stuff. So, all right, Debbie, I had a great conversation. I enjoyed having you on, and thank you for being on.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on. I really enjoyed talking to you, and good luck with your project.
Thank you very much, Debbie.
It's going to be great. Thank you.
We'll talk soon.
Thank you.